If leading your team sometimes feels a little bit like you're herding cats while you're carrying the weight of the whole company on your shoulders, let me just tell you here and now that doesn't mean that you're bad at leadership. It possibly just means that you're actually really fully overloaded. And here's the thing that happens to a lot of leaders and founders and people who are running businesses and they have other people who are supporting them with it is the thing that might be maybe slowing you down or not helping you achieve the performance that you deserve as quickly as you deserve it. It could be something to do with your communication style. And I don't mean, be fluffy and nice kind of communication style. I mean the kind where you walk into the room, say one sentence, and suddenly the whole thing, it's like, taken off like a steam train because everyone knows the direction you're going, why it matters, and what they're responsible for. And I've seen this in my career in banking over the years because when the leader's unclear, what happens is the team gets anxious. They need that certainty so that they know what's happening and the direction in which they're going. And anxious teams don't move forward. People who are anxious, they freeze or they fight or they check out. And that's where we're going today. My amazing guest is Dr. JJ Peterson. He's StoryBrand's professor in residence. He's a leadership and communication expert, former university professor, and someone who spent years in rooms with leaders who look unstoppable on stage and then create absolute freaking chaos behind the scenes. And in this conversation, JJ breaks down a shift that's seriously so wild once you see it, which is that most leaders are trying to be the hero of the story, the hero of the business. But actually, the best leaders, the ones we really want to follow, the ones that we aspire to be like, they're the ones that show up as the guide. We're talking how to lead without crushing your team, how to stop dumping new initiatives on people like they're a problem, and the exact way to open meetings so people lean in instead of shrinking back. Quick note, JJ also has a resource for you connected to his work. I'll tell you where to grab it later in the episode, so keep listening. And if you haven't heard JJ's first appearance on the show, our episode in Story Powered Marketing, go and binge it after this. He's incredible. So today's episode is what happens when you take story and aim it at leadership. All right, let's go. JJ, welcome back to the Master Your Business podcast.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
JJ, you're like the only person who's had the privilege of coming back for a second time.
Oh my goodness, that is a privilege. It's so good to see you.
Well, I'm super excited to have you here today because the last time you were on the show, we talked about all things story-powered marketing. And this time we're talking about maybe a different kind of a chapter that's evolving for you and for me, coincidentally. So how about starting there and sharing what that looks like for you?
Yeah. So for the past 10, really almost 11 years, I have been working at StoryBrand, helping companies clarify their message, using the power of story, which is what you have done as well. And have loved that. And I'm continuing to do that. However, I just turned 50 this year. I also got married about a year ago. I am now the father of 4 children, which was never on the radar. And so causes me to kind of, pause and go, what do I want the next 10, 15 years to look like? If I have 10 or 15 years left in the business world and working, probably longer, but ideally, if I could retire at 60, what do I want to do in the next 10 years? And I want to continue to help people, businesses in particular, clarify their message. However, my journey is about 20 years ago, I actually was doing improv comedy. I was touring around the United States doing comedy, and I loved it. But the touring life was just not for me. Staying up till 2 a.m, taking a bus, plane, car to the next city, and then doing it all over again. So it was really fun, but the lifestyle just wasn't really for me. And I remember being on a tour stop in Washington, D.C., and I was talking to my friend and just saying, I love what I'm doing, but I'm ready for something different. And he just kind of started peppering me with questions. And I realized that when I was touring, we did a lot of conferences and corporate events. And I would see these unbelievable leaders on stage, these people who are just dynamic and bold and doing big things. And then I would watch them walk off stage and I would see a lot of the trauma that they were creating on their teams. And I would see a lot of the pain that they were causing, or just the miscommunication where they were trying to get things done, but they couldn't get their team on board. And I remember telling my friend, I just would love to go back and help raise up the next generation of leaders to be better about the way that they communicate and lead. And he's like, well, then why don't you do it? And so at that point, then I decided I was going to be done, kind of wind down my comedy career. And I went back and got my master's degree. And then I ultimately got my PhD and I started teaching at the university level. And the first two classes that I taught were leadership. So every freshman that came into the university had to go through my leadership class. And then the second class that I taught was communication. And those really is where I started kind of building my career in helping leaders communicate and lead well, understand who they are. And I feel like I've always kind of done that, like in the StoryBrand world. But as I started to think about my legacy of what I wanted my last 10 years to be, I thought I really would love to get back to refocusing on helping leaders communicate well and lead well. So while I'm still at StoryBrand and still my title there is actually professor in residence, I'm actually launching a new brand called Badass Softie. And Badass Softie is the idea that that you can be a leader who is unapologetically driven, but also lead with heart. And so what I do is I help leaders understand their own kind of leadership style and who they are, and then teach them how to communicate clearly with their teams and also communicate if they want to be thought leaders, like in books and courses and webinars. And then ultimately, there's kind of a third component about bringing joy to the work you're doing. And that's really kind of what I've shifted a little bit. I still help companies with their marketing, but really I'm back to that heart that I had 20 years ago of helping leaders be better about communicating and about the way they lead their teams.
Oh, I love this evolution for you, JJ. And it's not even evolution. It's like closing
Yeah.
the story loop, right?
And like I said, I feel like I still did that while I was in, but I'm kind of just refocusing a little bit and getting back in that space a bit more.
Yeah, I love that. And so aligned to my own journey too, which is interesting because I've just finished my advanced coaching diploma with neuroscience. And it's like, where's that going to lead me? And it is going to open more doors for conversations with companies and leaders in those companies, which was my background, right? That's what I did for 20 years. I was a leader in a corporate. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going back there. Now I have I want to say I have the kahunas to do it because I like it took me a while to get out of there. But to go back is exciting. So I'm curious, right? And I think there's definitely an alignment between the story and the external story that we tell people, but then there's the internal stuff and how we lead people. And it's that communication and influencing that you're referring to. And oh, yeah, I can definitely picture those guys coming off the stage and the conversations with them. Like, yes, PTSD here. So talk me through what that looks like for a leader and like some of the challenges that they're facing with their teams. And I'm thinking even multi-generational and working from home and hybrid environments and all of that kind of stuff. So where do
Yeah.
you start with people?
Where I start with people is really showing up and saying, you need to have your own point of view as a leader. And what I mean by that is kind of bleeds into a couple different areas. The first is, I think a lot of people like me have kind of been in the, like, I've worked with Fortune 20 companies. Like of the top 20 companies in the world, I think I've worked with at least 5 of them. And then in the top 100, you're talking, again, a huge amount. And so I've been in a lot of these rooms with very powerful, strong people. And a lot of times I thought I needed to be like them. And so I, listened to maybe some crypto bros that I wasn't too excited about listening to, but I wanted them to push me to be like more bold and ambitious. And they did, but I kept looking at them going, that's not who I am. And so the first thing I really work with leaders on is understanding, what is your point of view? What type of leader do you want to be? Pause for a minute. You've looked at everybody else. You've learned from everybody else. Who do you want to be? And what are your goals and ambitions? And what is the story you want to write with your life? That's really where I start with leaders. What kind of story do you want to write with your life? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Then from there, what I do is I walk through, and it's not always sequential depending on what people need, but then really the next part is helping them understand that their job in this world, after they understand their own story and who they want to be, then it's showing up and saying, all right, how do you lead others? And you and I come from the StoryBrand world, and we understand that the most powerful character in any story is the guide in the story, not the hero, right? So, we've talked about this before. I know you've talked about this before, but in the movie, Luke Skywalker is the hero and Yoda is the guide. Frodo in Lord of the Rings is the hero. Gandalf is the guide. You could go on and on. Dumbledore is the guide. Harry Potter is the hero. And what that means is there's always somebody in a movie that comes along to help the hero win the day. Heroes are actually insecure. They're weak in movies. They're up and down all over the place. They're in jail. They're alone. They've made mistakes. And the guide comes along to help the hero win because they've been there and they've done that. They've already won the day. They don't need to prove anything. And as a leader, if you shift your mentality from I need to win this meeting, or I need to win this quarter, or I need to no. And that's a hero mentality. And that's not bad for your own personal journey. But when you're leading other people, they can see that if you are showing up as the hero of your story and they are living their own story that they're the hero of. And often leaders position themselves as in competing stories with the people that they're leading. They're trying to be the hero and their employees are trying to be the hero. And then they're living in two different stories. And in many times they're actually competing against each other because one has to win and one has to lose if you're both in hero journeys. But if you as a leader show up as a guide, the person who is the wise, empathetic, authoritative figure who's going to help people win, then you are not only the strongest character in the story, but everybody wins. And where that really comes into play is what we were talking about, communication. It's really this idea of when you stand up in front of your team to do the kickoff call for the year, are you saying, hey guys, this is going to be our best year yet. We are going to double our revenue. We are going to, these are all the things. And we have to be focused and driven and all of those things. That story, if a leader gets up and says those words, that story is about the company and about that leader. It's not about the employee. And what you have to pause before you do any kind of excitement, launch, communication is go, how do I communicate to this team in a way that invites them into a story that they get to be the hero of? And I'll give some really simple tips here, is the first thing is you have to pause and understand what is it that everybody in the room wants and what is the problem that is getting in the way of them accomplishing that. So for instance, when I go on stage at a marketing conference and I'm speaking to 1,000 marketers or 1,000 businesses, I don't walk up on that stage and say, how's everybody doing today? I can't hear you. How's it? No, I do. I will walk out of the room if somebody does that on a stage, but I'm not because what you're doing is you're trying to get the audience to affirm you. That's a hero moment. Or I don't get up and I don't tell the funniest story that I have to try to get people to like me or tell a joke, boy, the weather's crazy here. No, you don't do any of that. I walk up on stage and I say 2 sentences almost every time. The first is I have somebody else introduce me, and then I walk up on stage and I say, how many of you are here because you want to grow your business? And everybody's going to raise their hand. If they've just spent a couple $1,000s to grow their business, they raise their hand. So then I will repeat that and I will just say, you're right. We are all in this room to grow our business. But here's the problem. Most of you are wasting thousands of dollars on marketing because you're telling the wrong story and you don't even know it. You can hear a pin drop in that room and it doesn't matter. People don't need to like me. They don't need to think I'm funny. All of a sudden now I'm in their story. I'm there to help them win. So when you're presenting to a team, when you stand up and start with, this is going to be our best year yet, and we're so excited, or you start berating your team, instantly you've become the hero of the story and they recognize that and they shrink. But if you pause and you go, everybody in this room is really driven by serving our customers well. You start with something that they would all nod their heads to. Or you say, everybody in this room wants to be collaborative and really help support each other. So you just name it. And then you say, but here's the problem is our systems are actually getting in the way of us helping each other. In fact, the way that we operate is actually slowing our coworkers down because of the systems, not because of who you are. So we are going to operationalize our systems in a way that actually helps everybody win versus coming in. So that I started with, you want to be collaborative and help each other. The problem is our systems are wrong. Then I say, here's the solution. What most leaders do is they walk in with the solution. They'll start out by going, all right, everybody. So we are going to operationalize our systems and we are going to make everybody, and everybody needs to be on board with this. And I need a paper signed by Tuesday that tells me that you're going to do right. And everybody is going, oh crap, I'm in trouble. How am I going to do this? How does this help me? And if you invite them into a story and control the narrative first by saying, here's what you want, and here's the problem that now I'm going to present a solution for, it positions everybody you serve as the hero of the story, and you're their guide. You're giving them the tools and the plan to help them win. So those are how I really start. I really start with understand your own leadership style. Who do you want to be and what do you want to accomplish in the business or in yourself? And then 2, how then are you going to communicate that and show up? And that may be publicly with your marketing. So you're putting out your thought leadership or your business leadership or your business brand, or it really in many ways could be internally. And how are you showing up and leading your own team in a way that really you're the strongest character in the story if you show up as a guide, but nobody really thinks of it that way. They see you as the person who's helping them win. And then really the last piece that I work with people, that's the core. I will say that's the core. And that's what you and I do a lot of. And then the last piece that we can talk about kind of at the end is this idea that I'm kind of with the Badass Softie brand is the idea of practice joy. And there's a lot of pieces to that come with it. But really the core is that communication piece.
Oh, that's so powerful, JJ. Like I literally had goose pimples and I could feel the pin dropping in the podcast over Zoom. Yeah, I love that. And it's so impactful. And even when you talk about that from a leader's perspective, it's like personal branding for them in terms of designing what their narrative is going to be in the organization, in the company, and also for their legacy beyond that too, right?
Yeah. And, the truth is when you're younger in leadership, you are borrowing from other people and you're trying to figure it out. But as you grow in your leadership, I think understanding who you want to be and what kind of legacy you want to leave behind. And if you want to be the person, I mean, I actually know business leaders who are like, I was listening to a guy speak the other day, and he literally said, if you want a work-life balance, don't come work for me. I spend weekends with my kids and that's it. But then I work about 20 hours a day and I plan on doing that for 5 years. And then I want to retire. So if you go and work for him, so in some ways that's actually really, really clear. Like I actually appreciate him going like, if you want work-life balance, don't be here. But if you want to be here for 5 years and maybe almost destroy yourself, I'm going to make you a millionaire. And he was just like very clear about it. But I knew then I don't want to be that person, right? And I think a lot of us look at leaders like that and you go, oh, you're right. I should be, getting up early and cold plunging and exercising and doing all of these mind meditation and do all the things that like, starting at 3 a.m. so I can be done by 3. And they put out all of these things that it's like, yeah, that's good, but I don't know that that's who I want to be. And when you understand who you want to be, it actually brings confidence to the room for everybody else. And you're not trying to impress. You're not trying to convince. You're not trying to win. You're not trying to beat other people is what I mean by win. I think like in my company, I want to win. I do, but not against my own employees, right? I want us to win together as a team. And when you understand that first, fantastic. But then how do you communicate that? Because also I know a lot of people who are very kind, caring, loving people, and they're so stressed and overwhelmed that then they come in and they think they have to be curt and quick with their conversations. And they don't realize they're coming across as assholes. And they're not, and they don't want to be, but the way they're communicating is actually doing. And so if I can just give them a few tools to reframe the way they even start conversations, they're going to not only come across the way they want to, but they're going to be more effective with their teams.
they're going to be more badass leaders, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because that's really what it is. This is not about, this is one of the things when I talk about Badass Softie. It's not being an asshole or being like a hugger. That's not what this is about, right? Like some people are like, oh, so which time? Sometimes I'm a jerk and sometimes, and I'm like, no, no, no. Being a badass does not mean being a jerk. That's actually why call it Badass Softie. You can be a badass. You can work hard. You can be driven. And in fact, there are times, even with my own family, I have to say, hey guys, this week, I'm not going to be able to show up to Boy Scouts. I'm not going to be able to show up to this because we're in a mode that I have to be head down and driven. But they know why, because it's aligned with our family values and where we're headed, and actually communicate that. And then maybe the next week I take some time with them. It's not really a balance. It's like, when do you be like, you have to be always both soft and driven. And the reality is, I think it's more of a dance than it is a balance. Like, you have to learn how to figure out when are those moments that I push in and we're all going to be together a little bit more ambitious. And then when are those moments that we need to care a little bit more for each other and give space and grace. And both of those happen in tandem. They're not isolated. And so it's kind of learning to do that with a dance. And then even in those moments, again, I think more importantly, is when you're being driven and when you're being more kind and kind of holding things loosely, it's how you're communicating. Because even if you can be driven, and then all of a sudden you're offering grace to somebody in the team that maybe somebody else doesn't feel like they deserve grace in that moment. Well, that can also be, if you're too soft, that can also be detrimental to your team. And so still, even in both contexts, being able to communicate clearly why things are happening, what is the plan and the vision, and invite people to be a part of it, not just respond, but be a part of the narrative.
I love all of that for so many reasons. But first off, I love that you mentioned family and how you communicate as a leader in the family, because leadership doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a top exec in a Fortune whatever company. It can be at home. It can be on the soccer pitch. It can
Yeah.
be, wherever you do stuff. And even if you're a solopreneur with a VA, you're a leader to that VA, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter how big you are, everybody is a leader, and this communication is relevant. This style of communication, JJ, I think is relevant for everyone. Everyone.
100%. I mean, I'll be not necessarily vulnerable. It's not super vulnerable, but it's in the sense of, my daughter is getting ready for college and we're trying to figure out how to help her. Instead of us saying like, you're getting up at this time, I'm going to wake you up at this time every day and I'm going to make you breakfast in this way every day, like we do with our 8-year-old. We have an 8-year-old and it's like, I wake him up in the morning, we make eggs, we have our morning routine. But the older one, she's going off to college and we have to help her start being able to be responsible for herself. Well, a lot of times that means she's staying up later than we want her to. Now, I can either like have a conversation where I'm angry and like yelling at her for staying up too late because I know she's going to be late for school in the morning. Or I can begin understand of like, what does she want? Not what do I want for her, but what does she want? And how do I help her align her actions with what she wants? And how do I position her staying up late as the problem that's getting in the way of what she wants? She literally needs to raise her grades just a little bit in order to get the right scholarship to go to the college she wants to go to. Well, if she keeps showing up late for school and falling asleep in class, she's going to miss out on that scholarship. She's not going to be able to go to the college she wants to go to. So instead of, you need to get up, what are you doing staying up late? I could do that. And there were times that I have, and there's still times that I'm like, you're going to bed. I don't care, because it's a little bit different with parents. But if I really want her to get responsibility and in essence, create her own narrative versus trying to live and satisfy my narrative for her, I have to communicate differently than just saying, go to bed, get up. I have to say, what do you want? What do you want? Let's talk about that. All right, here's the problem I'm seeing. Let's talk about a plan so that you can actually get what you want by overcoming this problem.
Again, I love this. And actually, it's really reminding me of a conversation I had with a leader at one point in my career where he brought me in for a career review. And I had gotten several promotions in quick succession. And he said to me, Deirdre, you've gotten where you are because of your own drive, results, and ambition. But to get to the next level, you now need to learn how to bring people along with you. That advice has stuck with me for so many years later. And I'm curious, like, I think I've kind of figured this out, but for people listening, JJ, if they got that kind of advice and they're trying to figure out, okay, I know I need to communicate a narrative and communicate the direction a little bit differently. But if I've got a bunch of people, 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, and I'm trying to bring all of them along with me, how can I get inside their heads to know what is going to motivate them to be able to bring them along?
Yeah. So there's obviously when you're talking to individuals, you want to be able to identify those things, but you may not know all the individuals. But even in a room, like I said, when I'm in a room of 1,000 marketers, what I'm looking for is the common narrative that they're all living. So there may be a chiropractor in the room and a Fortune 500 company. And I have to figure out what is the common story that they're all trying to live. So when you're addressing 50 people in the room or 5 people in the room or 500 people in the room, you're really going, what is the common narrative for this group? What story can I invite all of them into? Now, when you meet one-on-one, that narrative is going to be a little more nuanced because it's directed more at that individual. But we call it an umbrella brand script. It's really the high level. What is the common narrative that they all have? And so, if you're talking about, again, like we're going to have a new system that is about project management. We want everybody to get in line with this new project management system. They have to learn it. The reality is, if I come to the table to this 50 people and I say, we have a new system that we need you to use, I have just created a problem for them. I've actually created a problem because they have to now work harder. They have to change the way they've done things. They're now like underneath, there's some scrutiny. Maybe it feels like I'm scrutinizing the way that they've currently done things. So I'm essentially adding a problem to their plate. But instead, even with those whole 50 people or the whole company that we're implementing this whole new project system, if I start with a problem that they're already feeling, now what I'm doing is bringing a solution instead of putting a problem on their plate. I'm identifying a problem, and then I'm offering a solution to solve a problem I know all of these people are feeling. Now, if it is a fake problem, this is where you can get off a little bit. If you're making up a problem to try to get people on board, to try to manipulate them to be on board, they'll smell that and it will go away quickly. So they won't follow you. So it can't be, what you're not looking for is like, well, let's just make up a problem. It has to be something that everybody is feeling. And the truth is, if you're a leader and you're bringing in a project system that helps, it helps, then there is a problem this is solving. But if you're just doing it to get your way, then people will smell that. That is the hero journey, right? Like that, you are becoming the hero, and even worse, maybe you're becoming the villain. If you're coming in and just trying to power your way through because this is my preference, this is what I want to do, that's not great leadership. You're not actually being a guide in that moment. You're trying to be the hero of your own story, and ultimately you're becoming the villain. But if there really is, if you're paying thousands of dollars for project software, it's because there's a problem. And so you have to identify the problem. Don't make the software the problem. Make the software the solution. Start with the problem the solution solves.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And I can see how people will be just bought into that kind of strategic narrative and communication then. And you know what? Like, it's just going to make achieving the end goal so much easier. But I'm curious, with the clients that you've had, JJ, around this, and the leaders you've worked with and the companies you've gone into, in terms of those leaders making that shift to where, to your point, they're not coming across as the hero, that they're actually shifting into the guide. What kind of challenges in terms of identity do you see these leaders going through?
It's hard to be a guide when you're insecure. And I don't mean that as an attack. I mean, I'll give an example. So I teach at Vanderbilt University in the Masters of Marketing program. Now, I've been doing that for about 6 years now. So at this point, kind of, I know the routine, but I remember my first couple years that I was teaching there, when I would get new students, I was really insecure, one, about the fact that I'm teaching at Vanderbilt, one of the most prestigious schools in the United States. And I was, in my own brain, I'm like, do I belong here? Like that was it. Plus, I hadn't been in the classroom for about 10 years at that point. I'd been teaching companies, but I'd never been in classroom with college students. So I'm like, are they even going to like me? All those things. So when I would show up in the beginning, I would try to be impressive. If I'm most honest, I would try to be impressive. And so I would tell funny jokes and I would try to be kind of the cool professor, like grades don't matter, like kind of stuff. And I would put on those kind of airs when I showed up in the room. And the truth is, it meant that I didn't do as well in the teaching, and it meant that the students didn't get as much value. That was my own insecurity that was showing up in that moment. I was trying to impress them, and I was trying to win in the classroom. I wanted to get good reviews, and I wanted them to like me. But instead, if I just show up and do my job the way I know I do, with care, like it's not that I'm a jerk or anything, I show up with a lot of empathy, but I'm also confident in my own authority. That is how I serve people best. And so I'll give another kind of example here. A few years ago, earlier in my StoryBrand career, is I went to speak for this company they're an investment company that they buy companies that are on like growing, and then they headhunt a high-end executive and then put them in there and then exponentially grow it and then sell it. Now, when I say they headhunt high executives, some of the executives who were in this room were like the founder of Shutterfly and the president of Xerox and a VP of Disney. And so it's like very high level people that kind of were looking for almost like their last chapter, like their last 10 years of legacy. And I go into this hotel and there's literally peacocks in the lobby. Everything is gold. I mean, it is like ornate. And I'm there the night before, and the owner of the company is walking me around, and we keep bumping into these different people. And every one of them is sitting there going, well, I built my company on story. I studied story. I know story. I hope this is good. One of them came up to me and said, I want you to know this is the most expensive room you're ever going to be in. And they were saying all those things to me. Well, I did not sleep at all that night. And the next morning, I show up. And right before I walk up on stage, they're literally introducing me. And one of the people from the company said, I need you to know how much money we spent on getting all these people here and you here. And I need this to deliver. And I start to get ready to go. I have the microphone and my hand is shaking, which doesn't happen for me a lot. But I was shaking. I felt sick to my stomach. I hadn't really slept. And I had about 30 seconds to figure out how I was going to show up on that stage. And I had to remind myself that all of these people were more successful than I. They were richer than I. They had built bigger companies than I had. But when it came to walking them through the power of story and marketing in their company, I was the smartest person in the room. And I had the most experience, and I had put in the most preparation, and I had put in the hours getting ready for that. And if I showed up on stage and I got up on that microphone and I said, wow, I'm really nervous. You guys, this is a crazy, intimidating room. That doesn't it doesn't serve me, but it doesn't serve them, because they did really like show up. They've spent a lot of money. They're taking time away from their company to be here for 2 days. And if I show up like that, now they have to feel like they need to take care of me, right? They have to be like, oh, he's nervous. We should make him feel better. So instead of actually being able to focus on themselves, A, I've either lost trust, or B, they now become the person who takes care of me. So I had to show up, and I did exactly what I did, what I mentioned earlier, is I stepped up there on the stage and I said, how many of you want to grow your company this year? Great. Most of you are wasting thousands of dollars on, maybe millions of dollars on marketing, and you don't even know it. I started with the story, not my own humanity or my own vulnerability or anything. And it allowed me to settle in, and it ended up being a hugely successful workshop. I ended up getting more clients after that. But that's what I mean by the insecurity. When you show up, not with arrogance, but you show up with confidence in that you actually care about the people who are in the room, and you put in the effort and the time, and you have the experience to lead them, be confident in that. If Luke Skywalker in Star Wars comes up to Yoda after a little bit of training and goes, are you sure that the Force works? And Yoda's like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I'm just as insecure as you are. That's not a good story. That's not a good guide. Luke is not served by that as well. He's got to go figure out what to do on his own now. But when you show up with confidence, and so that's the part I think when you ask, going back to your actual question of the idea of like, what are some of the pitfalls or things that hurdles that people run into in this? It's that when you actually shrink in your own authority and confidence, not only is that not good for you, but it's not good for the people you serve. And you don't need to show up with arrogance or false confidence, but understand if you really do care, a good guide really has two qualities, empathy and authority. So empathy is, I understand what you're going through and I care about you because I've been there. And the second piece is, I have a path forward. I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. And if you don't know what you're doing in that moment, you can be honest, but you want to surround yourself with people who have helped you find a way forward. So you don't have to say, I figured it out, I've done it. You can say, our team has come together and we found a way forward. So when you shrink in your own, when you become insecure, remember, it doesn't just not serve you. It doesn't serve the people that you are leading.
Oh, that's powerful, JJ. Yeah, I feel that. Like, I really can feel that. And even when you're talking about that as well, I can see me having done that sometimes where I've shrunk and I've made myself the hero. And I'm like, oh, yeah, but I'm totally stealing those two sentences for everything that I open going forward. Thank you, JJ.
And let's just close with one more thing. I actually relearned this again with Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift documentary, I was watching it before Christmas because I had some extra time and I'm like, I'm going to watch this. And there was a very powerful moment that I took away. There was many, but there was a moment where she was in London. She was getting ready to do a concert. And right before this had happened, there was a dance class of young girls that was using her music that had gotten attacked with a knife. An attacker came in with a knife and girls were injured and even killed. And she met with all the families right before her concert. And they didn't have the cameras in there. It wasn't this moment of like taking advantage of them or anything. But she came out and she was in tears. And she was really kind of emotionally struggling, obviously. But she said something to the effect of, people that are in this room, that are out there, paid for the night of their life, and they don't need to be worried about me. That in this moment, like she shared her feelings with her family and with her boyfriend and with her close friends. So it wasn't that she was like bottling everything down. But in that moment, she didn't want to walk on stage in tears and have everybody going, oh no, Taylor, we love you. No, she was showing up as the best performer and in control of that 3 hours so that everybody else could relax and enjoy the moment. And there's a piece of that in there from me in that too, is that it's not about not being vulnerable with my team. I'm very vulnerable with my team. However, when it comes to, say, a project or work, like personal, we can be vulnerable as we want. But when it comes to a work project, my job is to basically show up in a way that allows them to just enter into the story instead of worrying about my story, right? Instead of going, oh, JJ didn't sleep last night. Is he going to be okay? It's like, maybe I didn't sleep last night, but that's not their problem. That's actually not their problem. And that's not something I need to put on them to carry. I need to show up with my strength and my confidence and my authority, my experience to help lead the way. As a human, we can be as vulnerable as we want, but in the leadership context of a project or a movement or a business, you show up with confidence because that actually is what serves your people best.
Oh, and I'm like, I can see and just picture what the ripple effect would be for teams when they come into this and step into this. And even hearing that, like what you've just said there, if you just took that and shared that with leaders and their teams, it's like, that's how I want to be, it's like, I want to grow up to be like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Cool. JJ, oh my gosh, it's just been such a pleasure having you on the show again. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm nearly teary after hearing the Swiftie story too, by the way. I'm like, what? Thank you for that. So tell me, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you about this next chapter or any of the things that you have coming up?
Yeah, Badass Softie podcast is really the best way. Like if you enjoyed conversation like I have a lot of conversations like this. I do some solo episodes and then also interview other leaders who I feel like are doing this well. And so, yeah, Badass Softie podcast is really the best place to go. And before we wrap up, I mentioned something earlier about joy. And this is, I just kind of want to close it with this. One of the other aspects that I work with leaders on is this idea of practicing joy. And it started from a place of me just wanting to have more fun in work, to be very honest, of where I was like, you know, I worked really hard for this career, and then why now is it not fun? And I wanted to have more fun, but then I started actually doing a lot more research about joy and the power of joy. And the research shows there was a study by Harvard Center of Health and Happiness that showed that when you experience joy, it actually activates the reward and resilience centers of your brain. And what that means is it doesn't just make us feel good, it actually helps us recover faster from stress, grief, and uncertainty. So it actually makes the hard work that where we go through the stress and grief and uncertainty, makes it, we recover faster when we experience joy. And then the University of Michigan did a study about how when you experience regular moments of awe and joy, even just small ones, that you have lower inflammation and higher immune responses. Like, so it actually changes the way we recover from stress and changes the way our body deals with sickness. And what I'm talking about with joy is not just like having fun and laughing. The research shows that the way that you experience joy, that you can experience it through awe, finding something that brings a little awe or whimsy. The practice of gratitude, just being grateful, changes your body, changes the molecular structure of your body, which is insane. Connection and relationship, movement creates joy. Nature, positive anticipation, looking forward to something. One that's really important for the work environment is finding flow. Actually, when you find flow at work or in a hobby or anything, activity, you experience joy. Accomplishing something big experiences joy. So it's not just about whimsy, but when you as a leader show up to guide people, it's not often, I think, I thought of joy as the reward for the work. Like when I work hard, then I can be happy. Or when we accomplish something big, then I can be happy. But what the research shows is that joy isn't a reward for the work. It actually is the work. It's the thing that actually helps us move forward. And the way I help people with that is with unreasonable hospitality and teaching them to do that with their own teams. But that's kind of the biggest piece for me in all of this. In a world where we're more disconnected than ever, you were asking about like generationally, we're disconnected. On Zoom and remote, we're disconnected. You know, AI is taking a lot of the work that we used to like, even with a VA. I used to do more with a VA, a human, and now I actually have some AI tools that help me out. Right. So and this is not a bash on AI. I love what these new tools are doing for us. I think it can allow us to be more human. But if we are living in this age of more disconnection, and when we intentionally show up as leaders with understanding who we are, confident in who we are, communicate really well, and then invite and practice joy in our own work and in the work of others, I not only think that you're, as a leader, going to have a better experience, your team is going to have a better experience. And I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that we're actually making the world a better place when we do that. Let's be the kind of leaders who actually leave a better workspace and better legacy than the one that we came into.
Oh, yeah. And do you know what? I think happiness and joy in life is one of the best success strategies for high performance.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think it's when you love what you do, I hate that BS sentence about, when you love what you do, you never do a day's work. But actually,
Yeah.
when you love what you do, you're having fun and you're enjoying yourself. And so,
Yeah.
work doesn't feel work. Yeah.
Yeah. And the research actually shows it changes your body. Like it actually helps you recover from grief, stress. It helps you be more creative, more productive, lowers your inflammation, gives you stronger immune responses. Like it's kind of insane that you go, oh, when I'm happy, life is better. Oh, interesting. I guess that works.
You're stepping into my neuroscience world here now. All of
Yeah.
that. Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Amazing. Amazing. JJ, honestly, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you, JJ.
Thank you.
Okay. If you've been listening, I have been doing that. You are not alone. And here's what I want you to take from this. First, It's hard to be a guide when you're insecure, not because you're weak, because insecurity makes you perform, and performance makes your people babysit your emotions instead of doing great work. Serious truth bomb there. Second is, don't make the change the problem. If you walk into a meeting or a room going, we're rolling out a new system, congratulations, you've literally just handed your team extra work and called it progress. They're so totally going to pick up on that and not buy into that BS. So start with the pain they already feel and make the system the solution. Third, an amazing guide has empathy and authority. Empathy says, I get it. Authority says, I've got a plan. You need both, or you end up either steamrolling people or tiptoeing around the truth. Now, one thing to go and do today, not tomorrow, today, is before your next team meeting, rewrite what your opening is going to be. Start with what your people want, then name the problem that's in the way, and then give them the plan. That's it. That alone is totally going to change how they hear you. And if you want to go deeper with JJ, go and check out his Badass Softie podcast. I'm going to link it in the show notes. That's the fastest way to stay in his world and keep building this skill. And if this episode hit home, do me a favor, send it to one founder friend who's carrying too much and snapping at people that they love. Nobody deserves that, including the person doing the snapping. We're not doing that anymore. And if you haven't yet, please follow the show, leave a review, and until next time, keep mastering your business.